Chapter 1187, Surrounding and Killing the Centipede Queen. Zhang Yi's steady character was recognized by Zhong Yue. He also said, "Indeed, we need to be prepared for the Centipede King, and there is no need for the four of you to act together to deal with the Centipede Queen." Han Shanzuo's eyebrows knitted together. "In that case, you guys just stay here and guard. I'll go first." After he said that, he spread his wings and quickly rushed towards the bottom. Li Changgong took the lead and said, "You stay here. I'll go with him to deal with the Centipede Queen. 2 people are enough." He flashed a few times to catch up to Han Shanzuo, and the two of them rushed towards the underground lair where the Centipede Queen was located. It seemed as if they were afraid that someone else would take credit for their actions. Zhang Yi didn't say anything and remained where he was. Zhong Yue was amazed when he saw this. "That's the origin of a mutant beast of level Epsilon. Don't you want it?" Zhang Yi, however, calmly said, "A shrewd businessman only makes a limited profit. They are gamblers, but I am not." He did hope that the two would succeed in killing the Centipede Queen. After all, for Zhang Yi, completing this mission and allowing the Yuan Stone mine to be mined smoothly was his greatest goal. Even if he could not obtain the origin of Epsilon, he could still obtain an additional 10% of the Yuan Stone mine, so he would not lose out either way. Zhong Yue looked at the young man next to him and could not help but ask, "However, you and Gouchen have a conflict. If he gets the Epsilon origin and becomes even stronger, according to his temperament, he will look for a rematch with you." Zhang Yi smiled dismissively, then said in a gentle but confident tone, "No matter how strong he becomes, he can't beat me." Zhang Yi already knew Li Changgong's abilities, and unless Li Changgong's strength improved dramatically, there was nothing he could do about Zhang Yi. If he can't win, running away is the end of the matter. Zhong Yue looked at Zhang Yi and a smile of appreciation appeared at the corner of his mouth. He nodded in secret. He really admired Zhang Yi's character. The two of them watched the battle below and had no intention of intervening. This rare mission was an excellent opportunity for them to hunt powerful mutant beasts and obtain the origin. Zhang Yi and Zhong Yue were not in a rush to fight them for those things. With just a little effort, the two of them could crush those earth centipedes. The two of them just stood by the side, keeping watch for the appearance of the Centipede King, while maintaining communication with Han Shanzuo and Li Changgong to prevent any accidents from occurring there. On the other side, Han Shanzuo had shrunk his body and, along with Li Changgong, quickly traveled along the underground passage towards the lair where the Centipede Queen was located. The earth centipedes they encountered along the way desperately tried to block their path, but they were no threat at all. A few minutes later, the two of them passed through the long tunnel and fell into a huge underground space. It seemed to be a natural underground cave, huge and enormous, with hundreds of millions of years old stalactites growing next to the surrounding rock walls. Large amounts of blue ore were exposed from the rock walls, like stars in the sky. This was the central location of the Yuan Stone or vein, and the area was full of gnawed ore. The entire underground cavern is now shrouded in white, as tens of thousands of earth centipede eggs are entangled together in a sticky white liquid. The huge Centipede Queen is in the middle of the nest, where there is a small mountain, the foot of which is full of earth centipede eggs. After discovering the intruder, the Centipede Queen's mouth immediately let out an angry roar. Its huge body hovering above the hill slowly stood upright, and its flat body swayed up like a huge sail. This terrifying monster was hundreds of meters long. "What a big thing!" Han Shanzuo couldn't help but exclaim. "The insect is bigger than the bird, but being big is useless. Let's see if you're tough enough." Black mist surrounded him, and the crow's cawing resounded throughout the underground space, before it transformed into a huge calamity crow. Li Changgong pressed his hands against the hilt of his sword and said to Han Shanzuo, "You hold it off at the front, and I'll attack from the side. If I can just slash it once, it'll be dead for sure." Han Shanzuo nodded in agreement, "Good. The earth centipede's defenses are extremely strong. The carapace on the outside of its body can slice through rocks 10,000 meters underground like cutting through tofu. If it were up to Han Shanzuo alone, it would be difficult to deal with it. but Li Changgong's I Am Heaven's will is specifically designed to restrain this type of highly defensive target. The two of them hit it off immediately. Han Xianzhua stamped his feet on the ground, sending out a loud rumbling sound. It opened its black wings, which were more than 200 meters long, and cried out to the sky, "Croak, croak." Suddenly, countless black feathers drifted down from the sky, and an ominous atmosphere enveloped the entire underground cave. A strange red color stained the entire cave. Black smoke suddenly wrapped itself around the centipede queen, and it fidgeted uncomfortably. However, the black smoke was like a chain, and no matter how it wriggled, it could not get free. This was Han Xianzhua's ability, omen of disaster, an ability that could not be avoided, and once it had enveloped someone, bad luck would follow and their movements would be greatly restricted. Kalala. The centipede queen wriggled its huge body, and the carapace on its body made a crisp sound. It gave a sharp shake, and between the friction and impact of its carapace, an invisible shockwave burst out from its body, spreading towards Han Xianzhua and Li Changgong in an instant. The invisible shockwave avoided the eggs, and wherever it passed, the hard ground shattered instantly like dust. Han Xianzhua and Li Changgong suddenly paled, and the two of them instantly soared into the air. Looking behind them again, the rock face had already crumbled into fragments like falling snow. "Gochen, watch closely." Han Xianzhua flapped his wings and flew straight at the centipede queen from the sky. He let out a mournful crow's cry and grabbed the centipede queen's back with his sharp iron claws. The centipede queen was not at all afraid and soared up into the sky. Its huge mouthparts opened, revealing a dense array of sharp teeth. Boom! The crow and the centipede queen collided, and the collision between the two giant creatures set off a terrifying storm, shattering a large area of surrounding eggs. This made the centipede queen roar in anger. Her body twisted like a spring, and then she launched herself like a bullet towards the crow in midair, her huge beak coming at him like a spear. Han Xianzhua did not dare to let his guard down for a second, and used his advantage in the air to dodge the centipede queen's attack. "Ga, you can't hit me. You can't hit me. How can a worm on the ground chase a bird in the sky?" "Ga. Han Xianzhua shouted in a contemptuous manner. The centipede queen was already enraged by him. It opened its huge mouth and a powerful energy rapidly condensed in its throat. Han Xianzhua's eyes narrowed as he also opened his beak, and a red energy like blood also began to condense and take shape. Demon Crow Wave. Craw! The two terrifying forces collided directly in midair. The power was so strong that the waves it set off made the entire cave tremble. An unknown number of insect eggs were smashed, and the slimy egg liquid was scattered everywhere. Even the bodies of some unformed earth centipedes were thrown flying everywhere. At this time, Li Changgong, who had been waiting for the opportunity to strike, continuously activated 6 realms without distance, taking advantage of the fact that the centipede queen was distracted by Han Xianzhua, and arrived at its back. Chapter 1188, Super Regeneration. The centipede queen's attention was completely drawn to Han Xianzhua. It was not unaware that it was facing 2 enemies at the same time, but the strength of these 2 opponents was close to its own, and it was not able to distract itself from the enemy. And the space ability is all about surprise. Li Changgong killed to the back of the centipede queen while it was facing off against Han Xianzhua, and his long sword in his hand instantly slashed at the position of its head. My thoughts cut everything. Wherever my heart goes, nothing can be cut in half. With death imminent, the centipede queen's body twisted violently, every muscle tensing as it began to spin like a twisty. Puff! A long gash opened up directly on its back, and dark green blood sprayed out like a fountain. The centipede queen was shocked. It couldn't believe that its impenetrable armor had been cut so easily. As it twisted to avoid the attack, its tail lashed out viciously at Li Changgong. Li Changgong was no fool and could not possibly withstand the centipede queen's death-defying counterattack. After delivering a single blow, he instantly fled 1,000 meters away. The centipede queen's wound was oozing a terrifying amount of blood. Han Xianzhua and Li Changgong smiled at each other. If it had been a battle between mutant beasts, of similar levels, with an extra helping hand, the outcome would have been just as easy to predict as it had been. Since it worked once, it will work again and again, and the Centipede Queen will definitely die. Before the two men could rejoice, the Centipede Queen let out a hiss, and the terrifying and hideous wound on the back of its neck was actually caught by the muscles and then quickly healed. Gray flesh and blood grew out like foam padding, and its injury was actually healed. Super speed regeneration. Li Changgong and Han Shanzuo's gazes darkened. This monster living deep in the earth is truly terrifyingly resilient. Again. The two of them will not waste a moment of time here. They must take advantage of the Centipede Queen being alone to eliminate it. Li Changgong's eyes gleamed coldly as he muttered, "Just this once, if my sword cuts in another meter, I can slash its neck." Han Shanzuo croaked, and a sky full of black mist spread throughout the underground cavern, the omen of disaster enveloping the Centipede Queen's body. He soared into the air, then swooped down at the Centipede Queen, planning to repeat his previous trick. But this time, the Centipede Queen had obviously learned its lesson. It looked at its enemy coldly, and instead of choosing to face it head-on, it quickly got down on the ground and swam away at high speed. Huh? Trying to escape? Where do you think you're going? Han Shanzuo let out a loud laugh, spread his wings, and the huge black figure chased after it from the sky. Li Changgong kept teleporting sideways, encircling the Centipede Queen's escape route. If the two of them still let the Centipede Queen get away today, that would be a big joke. The Centipede Queen let out a shrill chirp as it ran away. Han Shanzuo and Li Changgong instantly understood that she was calling for help. "Oh no, we have to kill it quickly." Han Shanzuo let out a loud quack and, like a fighter jet, dove towards the Centipede Queen on the ground with his enormous body, like an eagle preying on a long worm. The Centipede Queen's head plunged straight down, as if drilling through the mud, drilling through the incredibly hard rock formation and burrowing its entire body into it. Boom! Han Shanzuo dove straight down, and his head crashed into the earth without slowing down. His beak could also easily break open the underground rock formation. With a single blow, the entire earth shattered like a spider's web. The density of the soil and rock tens of thousands of meters underground was extremely high, comparable to gold and iron, but it couldn't withstand the impact of epsilon level. The earth shattered, and the Centipede Queen's body suddenly appeared from the rubble. Its twisted body was like a spring, shooting towards Han Shanzuo's neck, while opening its huge mouth. Han Shanzuo's pupils suddenly contracted. He never imagined that the Centipede Queen, which appeared to be fleeing, was actually using a delaying tactic. If it bit him, his neck would probably be broken. He hurriedly twisted his neck to avoid the fatal blow, but the sharp Centipede Queen's body also slashed open a long gash on his side. A bloody tinge appeared in Han Shanzuo's pupils. He also opened his beak and pecked at the Centipede Queen. The impenetrable carapace cracked open at the sound of his beak. While Han Shanzuo was engaged with the Centipede Queen, Li Changgong had already pursued and charged in, swinging his sword again. The Centipede Queen tried to dodge, but Han Shanzuo grabbed it with his huge claws. Coupled with the curse of the omen of disaster, it made it difficult for it to move. The giant head of the Centipede King was severed from its neck with a puff by Li Changgong's sword, and then it fell to the ground with a bang. Li Changgong landed gracefully, and looking at the outcome of the battle in front of him, his eyes could not contain his joy. He had never expected the battle to go so smoothly. He could not help but exclaim, "Insects are insects." Even if an inferior creature gains great power, it still does not have the wisdom to rival the primate of all things. Han Shanzuo gritted his teeth and said, "You talk so easily, but I almost got my belly ripped open." Li Changgong's eyes looked at Han Shanzuo and then fell on the head of the earth centipede on the ground, and he gave a deep smile. "Don't be upset, it was all worth it. We got a piece of the epsilon level origin." Han Shanzuo was still gasping for breath. "Shit, that hurt, damn it, the claws on this damn thing are so sharp, like a sword." Having said that, he shook his eyebrows and looked at Li Changgong. "I bled for this thing, so I should be considered the one who made the first contribution, right?" Go Qin, I'll take this origin. Next time I catch the Centipede King, I'll stand on your side and give you its origin. What do you say? Li Changgong's smile deepened. The two of them had tacit understanding when it came to cooperation, but when it came to discussing the division of benefits, they still harbored their own ulterior motives and neither was willing to make the slightest concession. Luya, that's not what I meant. He thrust the long sword in his hand into the rock and said with a playful look in his eyes, without me, I'm not sure if you alone could have defeated the Centipede Queen. The atmosphere between the two of them was a little tense, and Han Shanzuo's eyes narrowed. Just then, a slight cracking sound came from the depths of the huge nest. Crack, crack. In the corner of the nest, the egg of an earth centipede slowly cracked open, and a more than 1 meter long earth centipede with a reddish body and densely packed eyes ran out. Unlike the white individuals the group had seen before, its color was a deep dark red, and its body was like red gold, exuding a strange luster. Behind it, there was a large field of earth centipede eggs, which were swaying gently, as if they were about to break out of their shells at any time. Huh? Han Shanzuo's eyebrows suddenly furrowed as he asked Li Changgong, did you hear anything? Li Changgong of course heard it. The combat uniform's sound wave capture system was quite advanced. It sounds like something broke. Chapter 1189, Held Up. The sound of eggshells breaking became more and more intense. The two epsilons looked around and saw that many of the eggs of the earth centipede that they had previously ignored had hatched prematurely due to the fluctuations of the battle. On the ground, on the rock walls, and even on the cave ceiling above their heads, there were strange earth centipedes hatched from the eggs of the earth centipedes that had been held in place by the white mucus. So these are the little things, Han Shanzuo said with a twist of his mouth, full of disdain. Although there were quite a lot of these things, they were quite creepy with their dense numbers. But the Centipede Queen was killed by them, so how much of a storm can these little centipedes make? You take care of them all. Li Changgong said to Han Shanzuo. My ability is not good at cleaning up battlefields. He is almost invincible one-on-one, but when the number of enemies increases, even if they are just some weak mobs, it will still cause him a lot of trouble for a long time. This is perhaps the only, but also the biggest drawback of his ability. Hey, that's all trivial. We haven't even discussed how we're going to split the origin. Han Shanzuo smiled and lowered his head. He hadn't removed his transformation, and his huge crow body was over 100 meters tall, like a skyscraper. He looked down at Li Changgong on the ground, who also smiled at him as he held his long sword. Neither side completely trusted the other. But at this moment, Han Shanzuo's gaze suddenly fixed, and he looked in shock at the back of Li Changgong. That thing! Shit, get out of the way! A look of shock flashed in Li Changgong's eyes, and he immediately laughed. Don't play that with me, I'm not a kid. Before he finished speaking, his body felt a huge pressure, and behind him, it locked onto him. The Centipede Queen, whose head had been chopped off, stood back up with its huge body. A brand new head emerged from its neck, which was full of green blood. It happened so quickly that it was over in the blink of an eye. While Han Shanzuo and Li Changgong were on their guard against each other, neither of them expected that this underground creature could still be alive after its head had been chopped off. They forgot that underground creatures cannot be inferred using common sense, let alone mutated underground creatures. The Centipede Queen launched an attack directly behind Li Changgong. A sharp chirping sound came from its mouth, and invisible annihilating sound waves rapidly approached Li Changgong. The distance between the two was too close, and by the time Li Changgong came to his senses, the sound waves had already arrived behind him. At the last minute, he swung his left hand back and raised a sword behind him. Boom, the ground shattered, and this sword stopped the terrifying attack, but Li Changgong's combat suit was also instantly torn to shreds. Li Changgong looked a bit disheveled at this time, with only some fragments of clothing hanging from his body. The combat suit could only help him adapt to the environment and provide basic defense. But when it comes to actual combat at Epsilon level, the suit's defensive capabilities are not non-existent, but rather just barely adequate. But at this moment, a troublesome problem arises. After the battle suit is destroyed, the changes in air pressure deep underground will make him feel unwell, and there is extremely little oxygen here. Li Changgong immediately pulls away from the Centipede Queen and asks Han Shanzhua for help. Do you have any spare oxygen tablets and combat suits? Han Shanzhua glanced at Li Changgong and chose to help him anyway, even though there was a conflict of interest. At times like this, they were still on the same side. He shook his wings a little and threw the spare combat suit in front of Li Changgong. He himself was staring intently at the Centipede Queen in front of him, preventing it from attacking at this time. However, after reviving, the Centipede Queen did not take the opportunity to attack. It coldly stared at the enemy in front of it, but instead slowly pulled away, its huge body swimming on the ground. Han Shanzhua understood its purpose. Because at this time, tens of thousands of earth centipedes had unknowingly appeared throughout the crypt. In addition to the part of the earth centipedes that had just hatched, there were also adult insects that had been attracted by the Centipede Queen's call for help earlier. This is going to be a bit of a pain. Han Shanzhua let out a breath, and Li Changgong, who had finally changed into his combat uniform, was still shaken. What about Epsilon? It is still weak in the face of the forces of nature, and will die without oxygen. He swallowed, and thought to himself, I have to be more careful. The swarm of insects surged from all directions, and began to charge at Han Shanzhua and Li Changgong. Li Changgong's face became a little ugly. His ability to deal with group battles was not very convenient. If there were only a few thousand earth centipedes, he could still rely on his speed to slash them one by one. But the number of earth centipedes underground was unimaginable. It was bound to be a tough battle. However, neither he nor Han Shanzhua intended to ask for help. With two more people, it would be even more difficult to divide the origin. Croak, croak, croak. Han Shanzhua's omen of disaster was released indiscriminately throughout the cave, affecting all the earth centipedes inside. Their mobility was greatly restricted, as if they were swimming in a swamp. I'll deal with the mobs, you go kill the Centipede Queen? Han Shanzhua said to Li Changgong. Li Changgong nodded, there's no other way. But, what if it gets away? Han Shanzhua hesitated. This was underground, in someone else's territory. Li Changgong looked at him, so, what do you want to do? Han Shanzhua didn't say anything, and Li Changgong knew what he meant. Call for help, get Zhong Yue and Zhang Yi to come along, for against one would be the safest approach. But they were too reluctant to divide the spoils. Let's fight first. Time waits for no man. Rather than dithering here, it's better to fight a desperate battle first. Li Changgong was confident that he could take on the Centipede Queen one-on-one. This kind of giant beast was his ideal prey. The problem now was to find the opponent's Achilles heel and kill it with one blow. If the source wasn't the head, then, by testing again and again, one would always find its Achilles heel. To do this, Han Shanzhua must first clear away the large number of mobs around him. Han Shanzhua soared into the air, croak. He waved his black wings, and countless black feathers fell, turning into a sky full of crows, which began to fly towards the earth centipedes. The crows and the earth centipedes engaged in a battle, and after a certain point, they even exploded directly. This relieved Li Changgong of a great deal of pressure and provided him with the space to fight the Centipede Queen one-on-one. Li Changgong gripped his long sword in both hands and charged forward in an instant. 6 realms without distance, a flash is thousands of miles away, and the speed was so fast that the Centipede Queen simply could not avoid his pursuit. But this time, without Han Shanzhua to distract the Centipede Queen from him head-on, and with the Centipede Queen now prepared for his attack, it was not as easy as before. Chapter 1190, Calling for Help. Han Shanzhua fought for Li Changgong and gained a one-on-one opportunity with the Centipede Queen. Li Changgong gripped his long sword in both hands and began to seriously stare at his formidable enemy. The first thing to do is to find its weak spot. As long as I know where its weakness is, I only need one strike to kill it. Li Changgong made up his mind. 6 realms without distance activated, he instantly charged at the Centipede Queen, his entire body turning into a phantom as he swung both swords down in a fierce slash. The Centipede Queen's body twisted violently, its seemingly huge body incredibly agile as it avoided both swords at strange angles. Creak! The Centipede Queen opened its mouth wide and suddenly spat out a viscous green liquid at Li Changong's back. Li Changong instantly pulled away, and the ground where he had been had actually melted away in a large area, with wisps of white smoke rising from the ground. Highly toxic and extremely corrosive. Li Changong made his judgment in the first instance, and the Centipede Queen's energy shockwave reached him the next moment. Li Changong crossed his swords, slashing in a cross shape, and the powerful energy wave was broken open from the middle, splitting into four and shooting in different directions. Boom! 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 The cave trembled violently as Li Changong soared into the air and attacked the Centipede Queen again. His swordsmanship had become even faster, and an inner restlessness was rising within him. His original plan had been to use their numerical advantage to quickly slay the Centipede Queen, but they had instead allowed the situation to drag on until now. If the Centipede King appeared, they would immediately be at a huge disadvantage. But Li Changong had forgotten one thing. His proud ability, his ability to defeat any enemy, had in fact never been tested against a mutant beast of the Epsilon level before his battle with Zhang Yi. Even though he had a powerful ability, without experience against a mutant beast with an ability index of 16,000, he would be unable to make the right judgment in battle. The Centipede Queen, which had already tasted the flavor of I Am Heaven's Will, did not dare to engage Li Changong head-on, and its huge body quickly swam across the ground. Li Changong gave chase, slashing the air to target the Centipede Queen's huge body. Pum! 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 The Centipede Queen's body split open, huge gashes appearing, blood spurting out. But it wriggled as it swam away, Li Changong's attacks causing only superficial damage. Moreover, with its ability to regenerate at super speed, it could quickly repair its own injuries. Pum! The Centipede Queen winced in pain, turned its head and spat out large amounts of venom, and Li Changong instantly pulled away. The Centipede Queen's huge body thrashed against the ground, shattering the underground rock formations and turning them into boulders. Crunch! The Centipede Queen rolled the boulders with its body and flung them towards Li Changong. Li Changong narrowed his eyes as he swung his double swords through the air, cutting the rocks into pieces with their sharp blades. Then came the sound of the Centipede Queen's annihilating sonic wave. Li Changong had to pull away again and soar into the air, and the ground where he had just been had turned into a desert. Li Changong adjusted his position several times in the air using flying cloud steps, and then looked down on the Centipede Queen with a condescending air. But suddenly, he saw an indescribable expression on the face of the insect. It was a mocking expression. Li Changong's face showed horror, and the Valley of Horror effect made him unable to bear this anthropomorphic expression. Damn insect, what are you laughing at? Li Changong dove down, slashing downwards with both hands. The Centipede Queen quickly twisted its body to avoid the attack, and no trace of a sword was left on the ground where the double swords fell short. This time, the Centipede Queen had figured out Li Changong's attack method. It swam away, then turned back and squirmed its throat at Li Changong, wow! Spitting out a large amount of corrosive venom in one go. Li Changong did not dare to touch this venom. His combat suit could not withstand the high-intensity corrosion, which would corrode even the underground rock formations. So he had to shift his position. However, after he dodged, the Centipede Queen's attack came again. Li Changong was not Zhang Yi. He could only briefly hover in the air, and in the end, he had to return to the ground. The Centipede Queen had turned the surrounding ground into a large, toxic and corrosive swamp, leaving him with less and less places to set foot. Unbeknownst to them, the balance of power between the man and the beast had been unexpectedly evened out. The Centipede Queen was not weak. The Xinjiang region had assessed its ability index at a whopping 16,000 points, and that was no joke. Li Changong had been unable to break through for a long time, and Han Shanzhua in the other direction was becoming impatient. Chen, are you any good or not? If we keep dragging our feet, what if the Centipede King with 18,000 points comes back, then we're gone. Li Changgong was also in a tough battle at this time. The Earth Centipede in front of him was smarter than he had imagined. Although it had been slashed many times by Li Changgong, the Centipede Queen had finally discovered the flaw in Li Changgong's abilities. That is, Li Changgong does not have a good way to deal with its annihilation sound waves and venom attacks. As long as it continues to attack in these two ways and keeps its distance from Li Changgong, it does not have to worry about being slashed. It is in no hurry to fight to the death with Li Changgong, because this is the Underground Kingdom, its territory. It won't be long before the Centipede King returns, and by then these two intruders will be dead for sure. Li Changgong recalled the words he had spoken earlier, and a painful feeling of being given a severe ear lashing suddenly appeared on his face. The worm is not mentally handicapped. Seeing that Li Changgong did not respond, Han Shanzuo lost patience. He chose to contact Zongyue and Zhang Yi. The two, who were still waiting deep in the cave, received contact from Han Shanzuo, exchanged glances, and then chose to open the communication channel. "Hello, Luya, this is Jin Yuanzi in Chaos. How are things going over there?" Han Shanzuo took a deep breath. "We're in a bit of trouble. We won't be able to take that big bug down in the short term, so you guys come over here and give us a hand. Otherwise, when its husband gets back, we'll have an even harder time fighting it." A smile appeared in the eyes of Zhang Yi and Zongyue, but the two of them also felt in their hearts that the Earth Centipede was indeed not as easy to deal with as they had imagined. No wonder the Xinjiang region is so cautious and is acting in conjunction with other regions. Zhang Yi thought to himself, this Yuan stone vein is really not that easy to obtain. I told you the Xinjiang region wouldn't do a losing deal. We'll be right there. After ending the call, Zhang Yi first gave a rundown to his men. Flower, you guys pay attention to sticking together, don't ever split up. Safety first. The group responded to Zhang Yi's instructions immediately, roger that. Zhang Yi glanced at the situation. Although the Earth Centipedes were still pouring out, a large number of them were returning to support the Centipede Queen after she was attacked. Therefore, the pressure here was not particularly high. The elite humans were well prepared and should not encounter too much trouble. Now, they just needed to slash the two epsilons to quickly end the chaos here.